Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go grab the RV. Last video we got it running. We left it where it was, but today we're going to take the drive out, go pick it up. I got my dad following me as a chase vehicle with his truck. We're going to load up a couple of tools. I never know what to bring this time. It's running, but you never know. Probably a couple of screwdrivers. Oh yeah, definitely a hammer. Always need a hammer for that kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe a booster pack or so. Anyways, stick around. Hopefully we don't run into too many issues down the road. It's been sitting for a while. It runs well, but I don't know. What do you guys think? But then I've got something coming out from underneath here. I'm not quite sure what it is just yet, but I think it might just be water, but let's climb underneath. Alright, so it looks like we found the culprit for that leak. Turns out that it was gasoline after all, but because it's so old, it didn't really have much smell to it. But yeah, you can tell that this hose has definitely got some cracks in it, so I'm going to replace it. Put a couple new clamps, and then maybe check out a few other things. Alright, so we got a brand new hose in there, a couple of new fuel injection clamps, and everything looks dry so far, but we're going to fire it up later and keep an eye on it. But I'm confident this is going to be good. Okay, so before we get hitting the road, but we're actually going to take this home today, I want to just open up the distributor, and I want to just make sure that all the fly weights and all that stuff, there's no condensation in there, so we're not going to get any misfires down the road since it hasn't ran in such a long time. And as you could tell earlier in the video, I mean, when I gave it some fuel, it fell on its face. So we're trying to avoid that in case we end up with a couple of hills on the way home. So let's just open it up and see what it's like. This distributor cap looks pretty new. I mean, granted, it is dusty, but let's open it up. Oh, look at that. Everything looks nice and clean. That's pretty awesome. Okay. I'm happy with this, so that's good. So we got a vacuum advance, I believe. I actually don't know a whole bunch about these older distributor vehicles, so that's all nice. But I do know that we can clean up a couple of things. So, alright. We're going to get this cleaned up, a little bit of WD-40 on some of these parts, just to make sure everything is good, and then put it back together. Okay, so now that we're done inside the engine bay, we couldn't leave the wipers the way they were, so I invested a whole whopping $10. I'm going to put on a new set of wipers for the front. Make sure that we make it there in style, of course, and then after that, we're going to move on to airing up the tires and hitting the road. So my dad's decided to help me out and clean the windows before we hit the road. And check this out. Holy crap. And apparently this is the second one. I mean, if you look at the paint, it's almost, well, it's actually growing like its own little stuff on the paint. It's been sitting for a while. So it's going to definitely need some good care. But let's air up those tires and let's hit the road. Okay, so we've got some air pressure in the tires. We know that the engine works. We've got some new wipers. We're ready to hit the road. Okay guys, so we've been on the road for a few minutes here, coming on the dirt road. Everything seems to be working good, except we still don't have the oil pressure, and I'm pretty sure that that's just a connection issue, because if for this long we wouldn't have had oil pressure, that engine would have seized up by now. It's working okay, got lots of voltage, so we know the alternator is charging, the speedometer is working, gears are shifting, so let's see if we make it home. Okay, so typical of any first road trip after about 10 years, the transmission is doing a little bit more work than it probably should be right now. It's sitting at about 260 degrees if the gauge is accurate. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it's smoking. So I did notice that it wasn't going into overdrive once I passed. There's only 2 gears in this transmission, and I'm assuming there's an overdrive because I believe it's a hydromatic. So we're gonna let it cool off a little bit before we head home. We're not super far, but I didn't want to cook anything before we get too far with this thing. I want to try and keep it for a few more years, anyways. Okay, so not only do we think that the transmission is running hot, but now I've got it sitting here, and of course I'm off the beaten path. Luckily I got my dad as a chase car. I can't get it started no more. It doesn't want to turn over. Nothing's happening. I got no power to the starter anyways. I got power everywhere else. But I'm not 100% sure now that we've looked into it that that gauge right there is in fact transmission as much as it is possibly coolant, because the radiator on this thing is just a steaming. So I don't have any testing tools or even gauges to check otherwise. So I don't know if there's some kind of a safety in these old beaters to maybe not let it start over when it's hot like that. But we're gonna try and boost it, see if that helps any. Okay, so it turns out the starter is sticky. I had to crawl underneath there and give it a good whack with a hammer. Probably end up taking that out and giving it a clean at the very least, or sending it to a rebuild shop. But we're up and running again. I don't know, the temperature seems to have dropped dramatically everywhere here, so we're doing okay here. But actually, I won't lie, that gauge hasn't really moved. The one on top here hasn't moved, but this one's dropped right down to below 100, but it was up to 260. So again, haven't determined whether or not it's the transmission that gauge over here is actually monitoring, or if it's coolant. But okay, it's running, it's hot, let's get it home. Okay, so we've done about 20 kilometers now since we started, and we're doing much better so far. The temperature outside has dropped a little bit. We've got a bit of rain, so that's helping out with the temperature on the engine as far as I can tell. I'm still not sure if that gauge is transmission or not, but just in case it's the engine, I got the heater full blast, the windows are down to try and keep us cool in here, but I'm hoping to take away that heat from the engine. But of course, like every road trip that we would have for the first time in 10 years on a vehicle like this, we have a sticky caliper on the driver's side, passenger side. So every once in a while, if I hit the brakes real hard, it darts to the passenger side. So definitely gonna have to take a look at that. And I stopped earlier and it was smoking. I didn't have a chance to take the video because a lot of traffic behind me. I didn't want to put anybody in harm's way, so I just let it cool off for a few minutes and we're back on the road. We're about 3 kilometers away from home, and hopefully we make it. Okay, so we made it home, guys. I mean, definitely not without some issues, but that was to be expected. Now, I think the starter is definitely a little bit on the weak side because it does restart. These brakes are definitely on the hot side. They were smoking, but they kind of freed up, but then it started to act up on the other side as well. Got the hood open to try and let some of the heat out, but it's cooled off a lot since I last stopped. So I mean, I was touching some hoses earlier and I could barely hold them. It's a little bit cooler. So let's just go back inside here just to kind of show you. And it's odd too, because now that I've got it shut down, if I refire it up, it'll go nice and slow. None of the gauges are bouncing. This is the only one for temperature up top that bounces exactly at the same spot every time. So I don't know if I trust any of these, to be quite frank. Well, let's see if it starts up again. Yeah, so it starts a little bit better now. Maybe it is on the hot side. Definitely going to change it to thermostat, and then also going to change for sure the coolant, because I think it's due. Anyway, all right, so I've just finished giving it a quick wash, guys. I didn't spend too much time with anything other than really my pressure washer. It's still quite dirty. There's still a few things here on the paint. It's much better than it was. If you guys remember, I'm going to show you guys a picture of before and after because I did half the hood. It's not super clear because it was dark out, but you'll get an idea of how bad it just was. And that's where I'm going to end the video for today. I mean, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.